One story we haven't had a chance to discuss on this show yet that is very important is the Nine News media's expose of the big building union, the CFMEU. They've grown quite a bit of late. You may have noticed CFMEU flags flying more often and more visibly on more building sites around the country than usual. All symbolic of their power in controlling who gets to build what and how and at what price. While unions do a lot of good in our country and in protecting workers' rights, they also have the power, if they get too big and nasty, to game the system. This is done by first blocking any non-union labour from a site, by blocking any other unions from being able to represent workers, and by going way beyond fair and reasonable demands from builders and bosses. How does this game affect you? Well, it puts the cost of building up. Some studies suggest the cost of building in Australia is 50 to 100% higher than similar countries overseas, precisely because of this alleged rent-seeking and kickback corruption by unions. So it makes housing and doing business more expensive in the long run for everyone. And it deters any developers from wanting to build stuff. And it makes a lot of projects way more expensive than they need to be, sometimes even too expensive to get off the ground. And it makes other projects less attractive for investors to bother with, so stuff doesn't get built. That actually means fewer jobs and massive housing cost increases. But that doesn't bother the union leaders so long as they get their control and power and money. In a moment, we're going to share an interview with you with a senior union official who actually believes the story goes even further than that, and the construction companies themselves may be involved in a little game that keeps the prices of building high and that government is therefore forced to pay for. So you and I, the taxpayers, end up footing a higher bill than we should have. But let's get back to the original story, the major investigation by Nine's newspapers and 60 Minutes a fortnight ago that really put the spotlight on CFMEU national boss John Setka. He quit his job the Friday before this show went to air.
What he didn't mention in his resignation statement, though, was his decision to stand down came after we sent him a list of detailed questions he wouldn't answer. We wanted him to explain why the construction branch of the CFMEU has been infiltrated by underworld figures and outlaw motorcycle gang members. We've been told if you want to win a building contract in Victoria on any major CFMEU-controlled site, it helps to pay a kickback to the union.
What? Oh my God. Shock. This fact was a huge surprise to many of the Labor side of politics and in the union movement. They simply had no idea that this was going on.
We've set up a meeting between an undercover operative and a self-styled union fixer to see what it takes to secure an enterprise bargaining agreement on workers' pay and conditions.
I will take this to them. They're going to ask me two questions.
Sure.
One, why am I helping you? Okay. And two, they want to eat. I think the upfront fee is cash, but all you got to do, I told you, pay the boys, make sure they're okay, and that's it. That's business. And everybody eats.
Everybody eats. Gee, the way I thought we ate in Australia was we went out and worked, got a fair day's pay based on the value we add to our society, and we go buy our food at a fair price at the shops. Apparently not. This is the nice sterilised term for stealing that's used by criminals. Everybody eats. How lovely.
There's undoubtedly plenty of good in what the CFMEU's construction wing has done for workers across the country.
20% fucking pay rise? There's not enough Ford Rangers in the fucking country.
The 60 Minutes report by Nick McKenzie, however, said it was focusing on the CFMEU's dark underbelly.
You speak out against us, we know where you are, we can get to you.
The infiltration by organised crime and bikie gangs. It's about the mates, the cronies, the bikies.
Yeah, look after your mates, look after yourself.
From violent threats and standover tactics
I'll fucking take your soul and I'll rip your fucking head off.
to bikie figures working as union-endorsed delegates and fixers.
Well, you're not looking at a steering committee at a kindergarten, eh?
A once proud union that defends the rights of workers on the take and in bed with criminals.
It's rotten to the core. You've got standover going on, extortion going on, contracts being awarded that shouldn't be awarded. honest people being pushed out of the industry. It's a terrible state of affairs, and nobody's doing anything about it.
Nine News alleges that the problem started with John Setka's 12 years at the helm.
The most reasonable people around reckon you're a fucking dog.
His was a reign of threatening and self-serving behaviour that many believed crossed the line.
I think his public persona pretty much says everything. He's, big and loud and brash and very capable of holding the attention of many and very scary to many as well.
That was Mark Ney speaking to 60 Minutes there. He's a former Federal Police Assistant Commissioner who was appointed to look into union corruption as a Royal Commission senior investigator. This was the first time that he's ever spoken publicly about his work.
Inappropriate behaviour, extortion and standing over both members within the CFMEU, but also businesses, both small and large.
Former Australian Federal Police Assistant Commissioner Mark Ney, who led the Police Operation Division of the Hayden Royal Commission. That Royal Commission into Trade Union Governance and Corruption was set up by the Abbott government back in 2014 to inquire into alleged financial irregularities associated with the affairs of trade unions. The CFMEU was named in the Commission terms of reference when it was set up as a union of special focus, along with the AWU, the ETU, the TWU and the Health Services Unions. Abbott appointed former High Court Judge Mr Dyson Hayden as the Royal Commissioner. The Commissioner submitted an interim report in December 2014, which found clear willful defiance of the law and recommended charges against a number of unionists. Over 50 potential breaches of criminal and civil law were identified, allegedly involving 9 different unions. The final report came out a year later in December 2015, finding widespread and deep-seated misconduct by union officials. More than 40 people and organisations were referred to authorities, and guess what the outcome of all that was? One conviction. Just one. An official from the CFMEU who copped a $500 good behaviour bond after he accidentally disposed of documents that could have been requested by the Commission. That was the offence. 5 other union officials had charges dropped or they were found not guilty. Then we got the political pile-on. The ACTU, the peak union body in the land, the Australian Council of Trade Unions, said it was all a politicised stitch-up by the Liberal Party to advance its ideological agenda. The Labor Party said it was modern-day McCarthyism that resulted in an outrageous intrusion into the personal affairs of union members. The Commissioner, former High Court Judge Dyson Hayden, was accused of being a Liberal Party hack and not impartial. He was then Me Too'd, and he had to resign in disgrace from the Order of Australia, with the Chief Justice of Australia, Susan Kiefel, apologising to the women on behalf of the High Court of Australia. Drama. Very familiar in our great nation these days, it seems. Anyhow, back to the actual story at hand. Nobody really got charged after all that taxpayer money was spent a decade ago on that Royal Commission. And now we have these fresh media allegations of naughty stuff and bikie gang involvement as enforcers.
Unfortunately, the Royal Commission was a moment in time. Life has continued on for the CFMEU and the Building and Construction Union, and many of the things have returned to normal, if not got worse.
Got worse.
Got worse.
The Nine Network's investigative report goes deeply into how organised crime operates in Melbourne and connects in with the unions. There's even footage of a man who looks amazingly like John Setka himself dropping a suitcase late at night in the driveway of another union official named Leo. The suitcase had the words, "Leo, you dog," painted on it.
Leo knows the threat came directly from the CFMEU because the person who left the suitcase was caught in the act by CCTV. So what are we seeing here, Leo?
This is the family driveway and the camera footage.
It's a fleeting moment you can see for yourself in this extraordinary clip.
And there he is.
It's him right there.
Yep.
And there goes the bag.
There goes the bag in the middle of the driveway and he scurries off.
If you haven't watched this particular episode of 60 Minutes, it's on YouTube and I strongly recommend every Australian take the time to watch it. It's an eye-opener about how the real underbelly works in this country, and we all need to be aware of it so that we can support and elect the politicians and police officials who have the guts to actually do something about it and keep it under control. Our current pollies don't. Victoria's Premier, Jacinta Allen, has appointed a former Deputy Secretary from the Department of Premier and Cabinet in Victoria, a good old Dan Andrews mid-level staffer, to investigate and report back in a couple of months. Wow, high-level stuff. Melbourne-based Sky News presenter Peter Credlin was not impressed.
A former middling level public servant. I mean, are they kidding? Not a judge, not a retired police chief, not a prosecutor. I can guarantee they'll get about as much truth on the table as Jennifer Coate did when she investigated Victoria's hotel quarantine fiasco that left 800 dead.
I can't specifically recall.
I can't recall. I presume I did.
I don't recall the conversation.
And I have some memory, but not full memory.
I don't recall specifically, not to my recollection.
Yep, Peter Credlin's right. It'll probably be just the same, a little bit of theatre. And Peter Credlin points out that none of those people that you just saw there are still in their jobs and nobody has been held responsible. So forgive us if we're not brimming with confidence about the prospect of a positive outcome from Premier Allen's suggested solution. Then CEO of the Business Council of Australia, Bram Black, has called for a proper judicial inquiry into the alleged CFMEU corruption, and he's written that he was a little surprised by the pushback from the government in response to this call. In an opinion editorial for the Australian newspaper, the Business Council chief says that the government's response was that for every unionist engaged in standover tactics, there's a business person also involved, on the basis that for everyone who takes a bribe, there's someone giving a bribe. As if, well, you know, that makes it okay then. That evens it all out. Your side's just as bad as our side, as if it's a two-sided footy match. No, government, there's another side. The side of decent, honest, hard-working Aussies who aren't bloody criminals, and we have a right to have this whole mess sorted out, thank you, Albo and Co. As Mr. Black rightly notes, I'm not sure what this sentiment is intended to achieve, because it isn't justification for not holding an inquiry into alleged serious corrupt conduct. The "it takes two to tango" response from the government serves no purpose other than to avoid taking responsibility for properly investigating what has or hasn't occurred. He is right. We need a full Royal Commission with actual teeth, or just a decent federal and state police investigation will do, with some actual criminal charges coming out the other end of it, preferably, since Royal Commissions seem to achieve very little and waste a lot of taxpayers' money funding expensive lawyers' and judges' retirements. Hope you enjoyed that clip. The Other Side is your weekly analysis of the media's best news and commentary without the woke, and we need your support. Please make sure you subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow us on X at The Other Side on X. It's all totally free to do that, but we could always do with your financial support too. So if you'd like to make a donation, click the Super Thanks button on YouTube with a little $ and thanks on it right under the video frame below. Even a $2 donation will really help us. And if you're watching on YouTube, do check out the full episode that this clip came from right here.